Media committee is a neutral facilitator between organizers/participants and the news media. This will make media a skilled tool. Control over who is representing an action or a group and making statements to the media rests with the organizers of that action or group. There will be no representative language unless it is GA approved. This means no representation or statement will be made on behalf of an action without the explicit consent of the action's designated media person. All right.
Now we'll be continuing the stack for clarifying questions.
All right. I have Lucas.
Oh yeah. My clarifying question would be that you said that okay, so if there was an action that required an occupied line of statement or response, right? So like an action that requires some sort of like formal response, it will now be required that every action which is gone to the action committee or whatever it is, you know, an occupied line of action have a media person. Because if not, I can see, you know, if people aren't allowed to make an occupied line of response, I'll contact the media person, there's no media person. That was my, I don't know, that's more of a concern than a clarifying question, now that I say it, but.
It sounds clarifying to me. So basically, let's say I wanted to have a march, right? And so I got people together, went to action committee, got it approved, so that way in case anything bad happens, we can get legal support. And we can like get logistics to help us. Well, on top of that, we would also need to designate one person to do the media liaison. And this person would be responsible for writing the press release. This person would be responsible for talking to the media about it and being the media point and call person. But this person doesn't have, you don't have to have a media liaison. This just means that that action will not be represented to the media. So that way each individual group can decide how they want to be represented. And that person wouldn't be saying, hi, I represent Occupy Atlanta and we're having this march. This person would say, this is a march and this is me representing it.
All right. So that kind of question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next on stack is Robert.
I'm not sure if you amended it, but before when you were talking about the changes to the website structure, I was wondering if you actually had a specific setup already in mind, program already written or whatever, to put these changes in place, or if this is theoretical right now.
There was a setup in mind, but that part has been dropped from the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Next on stack is Oliver.
I have actually a whole bunch of questions.
Okay.
We'll start off with the easy one. Can you please define representative language?
Representative language would be saying, this group is Occupy Atlanta. Or saying, I represent Occupy Atlanta. Because the thing is, I don't represent Occupy Atlanta as a whole. There are people here that don't agree with me. There are people here that do, and that's cool. But I can't represent everybody in this room because I'm an upper middle class white female that goes to UGA, and I feel like a moderate half the time around some of these people. So I can't represent them. I also can't represent different groups because I'm not a member of them. So to say I am Occupy Atlanta would be saying representative language. Now, but if you wanted to say a statement from Occupy Atlanta as a whole, like Occupy Atlanta is doing this march, you'd have to bring it before GA. GA would have to say, yes, we are all behind that, it is okay, this represents all of us.
But that would change the way action committee works. So, but that goes to concerns. How will you manage the privacy of media contact information? Because right now, that information is handled privately because it is private information between certain, it's handed to people and put in a pool to prevent abuse. So nobody can go, hey, I'm just going to pass this out to the national media. How do you prevent that from happening? And Occupy Atlanta getting misrepresented.
For the process,
this would not happen.
I'm very sorry that some kind of point of process is like shut up people. I didn't mean
for that to shut you up or anything, but I think I was under the impression that point of clarification is like a syntactical question or like a question about like audio or like something like that, and like although I think this might be a concern in the interrogative form, and although it is technically a question, the ideological implications of it require a back and forth, which is totally cool, and you're a smart guy, and that's why. But like,
I framed this specifically the way I did.
I
Is
mean,
that my question?
If you allow, may I please, Megan respond to that?
The first part of the proposal said that the media committee would act as a neutral facilitator, which would mean that the contacts lasted for anyone. The media committee would act as a neutral facilitator, which means that the media contact list isn't like public knowledge. However, people will come to the media committee, like a media liaison, and work with the media committee to get these things put out.
How will the emergency media communication be handled?
There would still be a media group. But it depends, what do you, can I clarify your question? You're clarifying your question?
Okay. We've had arrests and an action that was approved by the action committee. How will this be handled? Right now, any media
Point of process.
These are concerns.
Well, I asked a clarifying question because I didn't understand it.
That's why I gotta explain it. She doesn't understand it. Right now in the media committee, there's a peer review process before anything gets sent out. With one person as contact information, you would circumvent the peer review and consensus process that is happening within the media committee.
Wait, you have to be on staff.
Oh.
It's close up. It's closed.
So I'm going to take this one, Oliver. In the cases of like a written communication, there may be a process of peer review in that case, but when people give interviews to the media and when they're quoted in the media as being a spokesperson or as being a leader of Occupy Atlanta, that's like the type of representational language we're talking about and we're trying to move away from. And that should best happen to the people that took part in organizing or acting during an action. And that's what this is about. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay, thank you.
And also there would be a media point person for each action. So if there were arrests, it would go to the media point person to answer questions. If that person was arrested, which is possible because the whole point is that they would be there, there would also be a pool of people that would help them. And also this doesn't dissolve the media committee as a whole, right? And there are times that they could say, hey, if I get arrested, because I'm going to be at this place where people might get arrested, like a foreclosure auction, because that happens. They could say, if I get arrested, please write something for me. So that person would help.
Did you have a point of information?
A point of information for Megan's statement, that there already are someone that's allocated for the different actions to speak, to have that media content as a neutral party, and with Brandon is point of information. Nobody stated that they were a leader of Occupy Atlanta. The writers put that in contextual form to let their readers know.
Yeah. That's just the media.
Did you have another point of information?
Right now, there are certain media spokespersons like sort of put in place for different actions, but they're not necessarily the people participating in these actions or participating in organizing these actions, and this proposal is trying to change that to make it so that it is, right? So that when someone is wrongly said to be the leader or the spokesperson, at least we won't have the confusion of people accidentally being called for stuff even though they weren't there, right? Yeah, it protects that.
We've got several points of information that are being raised right now. Again,
To remind everybody, information is a brief, factual statement, not a place to express an opinion. So please, 1, 2, and 3.
Actually, I'd like Joe to go first. We had a pin morning meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Joe.
My information is just regarding the point person for an action and what the mechanics of the change given this proposal will be. While there has been a precedent set for having point people for action, the problem was that the media committee still had absolute revisionary power over the message put out by the point person of that action. I know I was a point person for an action, and revisionary power was exercised over the message I tried to put out for that action. So the change is there will still be a point person. However, that point person has autonomy in representing the action that that point person has helped organize.
Also, to address exactly, this is also not to this restructuring committee, which is already in here as well, to like kind of disband and restructure so we can make sure it's more efficient in a fair way. Also, this is also to encourage, because of the fact that you said we don't have spokespeople, that's not true. There are specific people who are spokespeople, named spokespeople by the media, and that language shouldn't be used, and the fact is that those individuals are called. And this is also to encourage those people to step back, so the media will not be contacting them specifically, and having others step up so that more voices are heard, like people from different opinions in this group, because, or I'm sorry, in this, whatever we want to call it, are represented. So that's also to address that, because of that. I'm giving you factual information based on the proposal because I was one of the writers. So that's the point there, that to make sure that certain people that are already, that have been up in the spotlight are taking a step back and encouraging others to express their opinion because they are not being equally represented. So, and also I was a point person for example, I was a point person for the media action last week, and I was over it. So there's that. So that's one of the reasons.
Process. This proposal was written by 40 people, I think I heard, so I mean, this can't mean that anybody can just stand up, and if those 40 people can stand up and interrupt the discussion, I feel.
No, I got it. You're right.
To kind of piggyback off what Dana was saying, point of information, it doesn't like give you the power to derail in either direction, pro or con, just like what's happening. It should just be like whoops, he said actually they said 1 o'clock, or like, you know, like they said the brown shirt, like, you know, like not, well actually, you know, like I'm badass, like it doesn't.
But just saying, because I wasn't the only person writing this, I may need help answering some of these questions. So I got permission from the moderator to call on people to help me answer questions that I wasn't comfortable with, or I didn't feel like I could answer fully myself.
And to clear, I'm sorry.
So that might explain why it seems like there are a lot of people talking. I didn't call on everybody, but there will be more people talking for one proposal than usual because I don't know everything.
And to clarify, while we are allowing this as facilitation, we don't want to abuse this, so please, let's.
To address the spokesperson who said they are and who says they aren't issue, everybody I'm pretty sure understands that media does sometimes say this person's a spokesperson, this person's a leader. The problem is that when there's a certain amount of people speaking to the media, those people literally become the spokespeople for Occupy Atlanta. And that's something that we need to break the pattern of, because it's not an opinion at that point, it's by definition a spokesperson, and those people do not speak for me individually.
So, did that person feel that their question was clarified?
That my word is the point of information.
Okay, so that got really, really weird.
All right, I guess we have to worry. All right. This dude's the next person on stage. Okay, so
Okay. What's up?
So my question is, like, just two quick things, like, so can you describe, like, in the proposal, like, what the media committee specifically would do, kind of like their goals and everything, and what their responsibilities and limitations or whatever? And two, do y'all think it'd be helpful, and I'm sorry if it's concerned, but to put something on the website, just so it's kind of kept in the media's mind even, that no one ever speaks for Occupy Atlanta, everyone only speaks for either or something.
That'd be really awesome, but I don't know if this is really the place to like decide something like that. I don't know. But the first one, the role of the media committee is to act as liaisons. So, like I said, if I have an action I want to do, I want to organize, I don't know, I want to yarn bomb stone nut, the whole thing. It's going to be covered in nut, which would be awesome. But, and it is kind of a secret goal. But, well, what I would want to do, since I would get the craftivist together, and I would go to action committee, and I'd say, we're going to be yarn bombing this thing, which means to cover in yarns, by the way. It's not violent. Because I don't think everybody knows what yarn-related graffiti is. But I would say, I'm going to go, and I'm going to do this thing. It's going to involve lots of yarn, and action committee could approve it or disapprove it. But if they approve it, then the craftivists and the people involved in this action would decide a media point person. That person would draft a statement to the media. They'd bring it to a member of the media committee. The media committee would send it out using their contacts. I could ask the media committee for help. Hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. I do yarn. Please help me. And they can help me draft the proposal or draft the announcement. And then I show up. I throw a lot of yarn on stuff, Stone Mountain. And the media shows up. And since I was decided the media point person by the group of people committing the action, I'd be the one that would speak to Channel 2 News or whatever. I'd be the one saying, yes, we did this, and it's really awesome. I wouldn't say this action represents all of Occupy Atlanta. What? Unless passed through GA. But I would say this is an action that we did.
So would the media committee would like facilitate like the journalists, like put them in touch with whoever's doing whatever action for whatever thing. So they would just facilitate that communication.
Yes, and there'd be a skill pool, which means that we know that the media committee is filled with people who know lots of really great things. We have people that know how to write and edit and talk to the camera and make sure everybody is where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. And that's valuable, and we want to keep that. And but we also want to make sure that that type of skills are shared. And so if I don't want to talk to the camera, I really hear, hey, would you want to talk to the camera? Because I'm really shy, and I really don't want to be in front of the camera, and none of the other craftivists want to be in front of the camera. Could one of you guys do this? I would be okay with that. So I could choose, or I could represent myself, so they could do that. If I'm not comfortable writing an article and submitting it to the AJC, I would bring it to them and be like, hey, could you guys look at this for me? I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please make sure that I didn't spell anything embarrassingly wrong, or whatever. Or can you help me with formatting? So they would basically be like facilitators and skill sharers, and they would also, if I didn't want it, if I was like, I'm not equipped to do this at all, could you please do this? One of them could volunteer to do that. So did that answer your question? Cool.
You're not shy.
No, I feel like I might. If you've ever seen me at a press conference, I always tell people, be careful, I might projectile vomiting. Honestly, I said that several times.
Next on stand for clarifying questions, David.
Recognizing the power of full consensus, very simply, would you, at the outset, before we get concerns, were you going to get full consensus on this?
And no, it was decided to be 90% consensus.
Thank you.
All right. Next on stack is George.
One question. Suppose, for the sake of discussion, masked armed men who had been at a General Assembly meeting the night before decided that they were going to break out a well-known member of Occupy Atlanta from prison. Free copper. And bring them someplace that is frequented by Occupy Atlanta people. What mechanism, under the proposal that you have proposed, would Occupy Atlanta be able to say publicly, without going through a General Assembly, in the time it takes to respond to the media, that it wasn't us.
Yeah, the individual who's in question here already has said that it's not related to Occupy Atlanta, so it's as easy as anybody talking to the press saying this individual said it's not related to Occupy Atlanta.
And also, there is something, you can convene emergency GAs at any time. Emergency GAs, I believe you only need 20 people for, or even less than that. 20? You have to have 20 people, and then you can pass it through that, because that's our process for GA.
But it's still representative language.
But representative language can be used when it's passed through GA.
I think this is my point, so I'll take it up in concerns.
Oh, and did you want to?
We do have a couple of points of information being raised. I saw 1 and 2. And are you holding your finger?
Sorry, what's my, yeah.
Also, in a case like that, or any case, the press can always approach any of us, right? So if the press approaches me when I'm at an action, then I can go ahead and give my opinion at any time, but my disclaimer would be I do not represent Occupy Atlanta, but as somebody that has witnessed this event or been a part of this action, I believe that I should.
Point of process.
He said that he would bring it up in process, so I don't really, I mean,
Concerns, I don't see why we need to go into the